So when I first filed the case and I went down on site and I started looking at the computer on site and I saw that there was a case that involved an insurance company that had the same last name I do. And it was spelled the same way, which is unique in one manner because the Crouse is rather popular and has some bearing down in Texas, but it depends on how it's spelled. And it also happened to be connected to a case involving an insurance company that at the time I suspected, as part of my investigation, was connected to an intentional effort to defraud the terrorist risk insurance program, along with other kinds of sectors in the insurance industry, with the aim of making private insurance marketplaces out of things that would otherwise have been covered under TRIP. And so when I saw that this particular company, this insurance brokerage, was named in litigation along with these other companies that were specifically identified as being located in Illinois and Texas, I became immediately concerned that rather than responding to my actual case, again, what was happening is that somebody was abusing the judicial process to use my case as a derivative in some sort of case kickback scheme. You set up hedges or options on cases. They go one way, they go another way. Some judge may actually review it. You may actually get time in court. You might actually get to file a brief. You might get a judgment. You might get an opinion. And then, depending upon the date, depending on other factors that are involved, that it sets up options. And then later on down the pipeline, somebody else puts a case in. And depending upon who they are, what kind of clout they have, including the lawyer or the law firm with which they're associated, you may not even take their case seriously. But it may set up a situation to deliver on benchmarks you already had on other cases. And that's what I suspected they've been doing with my case this whole time. They don't actually respond to my charges. It's never about me. It's never about whatever I seek to get some sort of redress for. They've already set up a bunch of deals, and they just want to see how successfully they can compel performance in accordance with a completely fraudulent and mischaracterized bond so that they can deliver kickbacks for other people. So when I got that information about that case, I actually contacted every attorney listed on the case and let them know what my concerns were. Did any of them get back to me? That's not so important as the other thing that I suspected at the time. See, I had concerns that while I was on the street, I was constantly being sent all over the place in connection with the confirmation of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. I didn't know why. I was on the street. I suspected it had something to do with the accusations against him, which were perhaps in some way connected to a motion I had filed in my effort to file with the Supreme Court of the United States in 2017. And among the things that I filed was a motion to request a voluntary recusal of Justice Neil Gorsuch in the event that the Supreme Court decided to actually take my case. This was requested as a voluntary recusal because I understood that part of my allegations would reveal information about speculation on his confirmation. And the request for a voluntary recusal was to say that it would not, I did not want him to be party to a conflict of interest insofar as I understood the case was going to bring up these elements of the pattern of racketeering activity that could put him in an awkward situation where he, to be called upon to adjudge a case where the matters connected to his confirmation were material factors. That didn't happen, but all of a sudden, a year later, I'm on the streets. They're doing a confirmation for another justice, but they keep trying to identify it with things connected to, amongst other things, that motion I filed, as well as what my charges were. And the fact that that motion came up in the course of trying to address my charges. So while I'm trying to figure out what these federal district judges in Dallas are doing with my case, because they're not responding to my case, and the case law references are very suspicious, I find this case that mentions a woman who has the same last name as Justice Gorsuch. A case that is about Federal Housing Administration insured mortgages. It lists two companies involved with different elements regarding the banking and financial services sector, specific to concerns she had around her cases or around her mortgages. My concern became, and I tracked for several months, benchmarking connected to this case and announcements connected to activities ongoing at the Supreme Court of the United States, including my concern that what was happening is that part of Brett Kavanaugh's proceeding, his confirmation process, was also itself setting up benchmarks. See, my understanding is that when you're a Supreme Court justice and you go to do your confirmation, that they review your cases. And what they do, among other things, is they set up benchmarks, expectations of what you're going to deliver to the people as part of your exercise as a justice of the Supreme Court. This is why they mention certain things. It's the only way it seems to make sense. Because these guys at these confirmation hearings, these senators, are usually lawyers themselves. And they don't discuss it from a standpoint of actually trying to get at your legal acumen. There's something else they're setting up. And that's what I understood was happening. So the question was, were they adjudging Kavanaugh in consideration of deals further up the pipeline that had been set up, including in connection with Justice Gorsuch's confirmation, which didn't have the same sort of contentiousness? And I suspected that somehow they were using my case with that prior case connected to the logistics considerations involving an insurance company that had the same last name as my family name, comparable to my suspicions of the accusations against Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation being connected to something involving Justice Gorsuch, up to and including potentially his time at the Department of Justice when he was queried about information he had given or writings he had done connected to allegations of enhanced interrogation techniques and or torture. Now, that's just one element that was part of my concerns when I appealed later in the year, or later on in early 2020, and then saw what ended up happening. But the specific thing I had in consideration of my case, 3:19-CV-02280-K-BK, which I ended up filing on September 24th. You can see, there's the time stamping in person. Can you see that? Right? On person inside. And then ended up getting a opinion from a judge, Judge Renee Harris Tolliver. And then I ended up trying to appeal that for reconsideration on October 15th, 2019. And then ended up getting that responded to. So let me show you the time stamping here. This is one of the documents in that case. See that? And I got a response from the actual presiding judge, Ed Kincaid, on October 16th of 2019. Now, these guys were very quick to respond to my original motion as well as my effort at an appeal. And in the first one, I was assigned to a magistrate judge, and I did not consent to go before a magistrate judge, but she ruled anyway. So I appealed it, and then the next day, I got the order accepting findings, conclusions, and recommendation of the United States magistrate judge, as well as a judgment. And I will address that next.